The weekend is finally here. Welcome, everyone, to the Friday edition of the Media Row podcast. I'm your host, Justin Miller. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show today and throughout the shows that we posted this week, this month, this past year. Just thank you so much for being a proud supporter of the Media Row podcast. Continue to show that support by liking, commenting, rating, subscribing to wherever you are viewing or listening to today's show. And then follow us all over social media. At Media Row Pod is where you can catch us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Twitter's always busy during games, so that is where you want to be if you're following along with Drake at Media Row Pod on Twitter. Also, go ahead and support local with our sponsor in Kelly's Little Nipper. Check them out at 1701 East Grant Avenue in Des Moines. That's where you'll be able to find Jeff and his wonderful staff, as well as a great group and community of people that come in to Kelly's Little Nipper. Great food, great drinks, better people. Go check them out. 1701 East Grant Avenue in Des Moines. Kelly's Little Nipper, proud sponsor of the Media Row podcast. Boy, where do we start but with negativity on a Friday to get you ready for the weekend? But this is where we have to start. Wednesday night in Peoria, Drake loses 93-66. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. The whole point of me creating this podcast, me doing a Drake focus show, was to give Drake fans an area to debate, to have discussions, and to follow their team. I'm part reporter, air quotes, strong air quotes there, and covering the each and every game, covering the post-game press conferences. I am a fan still, and I want to treat this show as a fan that isn't going to sugarcoat everything. And now some people believe I have in these past few months, and that's fine with me saying, let's wait and see with Coach Henderson and this brand new squad. There's no sugarcoating Wednesday night, though. That was a brutal, disappointing loss. And probably the worst game of basketball I've seen from Drake in years. Hard to watch. Gut-wrenching, to be honest. I seriously found myself more frustrated and sick to my stomach than I really ever have watching a game. There's no sugarcoating it. And we have to start by giving Brian Wardle and the Braves credit to the scheme that they put forth against Drake and just how they were able to slow down Drake. That you have to give credit to Wardle. They did a great job of closing those driving lanes from Quinn and the other guards at Drake. They were way more physical, and they just outplayed Drake in every aspect. So you give your credit and your due to the opponent. 90% of this falls on Drake, though. Still no identity, consistent identity from this team. Where I was talking to a lot of people that cover multiple teams in the Missouri Valley. Got a call from one of them. And he said, hey, I just got home. Turned on this Drake game. Why is it every time I turn on Drake, it looks like they don't know what they're doing? Or they don't have a rhythm. And I said, that's because it's how it's been. This team is so inconsistent, not just shooting the ball, but mentally inconsistent, where they wear their emotions on their sleeves, which is fine to an extent. It's fine when a player gets frustrated because they made a mistake. It shows they care, which we're going to be harsh on this team. You know, none of these players and coaches wanted to start the year like this, but it's how the year's going. And it's the only consistent we're seeing is inconsistency from Drake. the team that beat Indiana State clogged the lanes fairly well. And we praise Drake for being mentally tough to escape that adversity that they faced against the Sycamores. And we praise them for seeming like they were finally getting over that hump of a team that wasn't connected and was allowing teams to get under their skin fairly easily with mistakes. But then on Wednesday night, that team that beat Indiana State was nowhere to be found. The Bulldogs were bullied in the paint. Just Bradley absolutely was the way more physical team. Janovic, who is good for Bradley, one of their 2 7-footers. He is a good player. But over the years of watching him, I've found where I still don't think his footwork is as fluid as you'd want to see from a senior center at Bradley. And at times he seems like if he gets matched on anyone close to his size or bigger, he's virtually taken out of the game. And I had hope with Federico's ability to stretch the floor and his more athletic build that he'd be able to cause some struggles against Janovic. Not even close. Janovic handled Federico and whoever was in the paint. Goodberry, Carr. They put the shoulder into the chest of Drake, and Drake had no response. Again, the team that beat Indiana State responded with punches of their own. This Drake team on Wednesday, they almost looked like they got frustrated at each other and with themselves more than they wanted to throw a punch back. You couldn't even take advantage of free opportunities. The free throw line issues that continue to happen. And again, the 14 turnovers. Some of that credit to Bradley. Some of it was Drake just lazy basketball, poor fundamental basketball, where they just hurt themselves. The hardest part of this game was how apparent it was that Drake really struggled with the mental side of the game. It really felt like this game was over at the 12-minute mark, where the Braves go on a 12-0 run. They lead 18-7. And from right there, guys are hanging their heads. There's just no energy, no juice coming from the team. It's fine to shake your head off of a miss and be upset. But when it starts affecting your game, then you have issues, and big issues that land on the shoulders of Coach Henderson. And that's what we saw Wednesday, where the turnovers increased greatly after that 12-0 run. And then the shooting cold streak just got deeper and deeper. Drake finishes the game shooting 36%. Bradley on the other side, 51%. Then you bring up the free throws. You bring up the turn. It's just, it snowballed. And it snowballed so fast. Bradley, a couple of numbers that will just continue to not make us feel good about Wednesday at all and make us nervous about tomorrow's game at the Knapp Center against Belmont. This is the largest loss for Drake since 2023-24. They lost by 27 on Wednesday night, lost by 24 in 23-24 to Stephen F. Austin. This is also the largest margin of victory by either team in this series, the longest standing series in the Missouri Valley since 1959. This Drake team's making history in the wrong direction. And there's two plays. I use the word concern a lot on this show. There were two plays that summed up this game that don't have me concerned, they have me disturbed. Play number 1. This is back to giving credit to Bradley on their defensive side and Wardle's scheme. Bradley knew Drake runs their best offense when you get the guards as Jalen Quinn, Jashawn Thomas, you get them driving downhill in the paint. Well, every time a guard went into the paint, Bradley crashed and trapped them. And while the team against Indiana State got themselves collected, pivot, found an open player, against Bradley on the road Wednesday, panic set in so fast, just like it did against Illinois State. So you have this play. Quinn drives to the paint. Bradley crashes. He starts panicking, hands it off to Andrew Aaliyah. He panics when the defensive big men for Bradley crash him, and they turn it over. And on the other side, Bradley just goes shoulder into the chest of Federico and scores an easy layup, coast-to-coast layup. That play is disturbing because this was a game that I had mentioned earlier in the week being a measuring stick for Drake. This 2-game stretch was going to be a measuring stick for the Drake Bulldogs because Bradley's a team starting to find who they are after a slow start. They're going to be a contender in the Valley. And then they get a take on Belmont on Saturday, who is the same story of a true contender in the Valley. And if they get hot at the right moment, could win a game in the NCAA tournament if they make it. This is a measuring stick game, and it was abundantly clear that Drake is not physically built to withstand the strength and size of teams like Bradley. And there's a lot of teams in the Valley. Belmont's going to stretch this team out. We saw what Illinois State was able to do with their balanced inside-out game. That was disturbing. Play 1 was disturbing because of that. Play 2 is disturbing for moving forward on many levels. Jalen Quinn drives to the hoop. Misses the layup. Good defense by Bradley. Shakes his head, jogging down the court, while the guy he's supposed to guard hustles down. Bradley does an outlet pass. Bradley scores the layup easily. And that is when it becomes disturbing of the mentality and how this team struggles with the mental side of the game. That is your leader on the floor, Jalen Quinn. Leader in points and the guy you look to when things are going bad. And he's shaking his head, jogging up the floor. And it would be hard. I mean, again, these are 20-year-olds and you're down 22 to 52. I get it. It would be really hard to try to keep that energy up. That's where it lands on the shoulders of Henderson and his staff. That is disturbing because it is January. Those mistakes you expect to be ironed out by now. There's teams all over the country that face huge deficits. And yet you can see what they're trying to do. Even when things aren't going right, you can see what the team is attempting to do to chip back into the game. Drake, you could not see what they were trying to accomplish. It was back to the biggest issue we've had since November of this team just not having a true identity. Brutal game to watch. Hard game to watch. And it doesn't get any easier. The scariest part of losing to Bradley 93-66 was the fact that we all just saw what Belmont did to you and I 2 hours before tip-off. This was the game earlier in the week. I'd mentioned Drake in these next 2 games. try to battle against Bradley, and this is the game you have the best shot of winning. You and Bradley on paper look like you're similar. Watching them now go head to head, not similar. But you felt like going into it, this is your best chance to get a win this week, is at Bradley. You can beat Bradley. Then you lose by 27, your worst loss in 3 years. And then you're coming off of seeing what Belmont did to you and I, where they hit 10 threes, shot 60% on the road against the nation's, not the Missouri Valley, the nation's best defense in the Panthers. Belmont's legit. Belmont and Alexander, this team is fun to watch. They didn't even have their starting guard in Nick McLean. He was out. And yet this team didn't turn over the ball too much against you and I. They actually handled you and I very well with how good of a defense Jacobson has. They spread them out, and then they were just hitting their shots. 60%. You had true freshman Jack Smiley, who no one knew really who he was before Wednesday night. He puts up 19. Oh, and then, you have the best three-point shooter in the Valley in Lundblade, putting up 14. And when he's hitting shots like he did in the corner early in that game right before halftime, I sat back and went, I don't know what you and I are supposed to do. This Bruins team is so good. And if they can do that to a really strong and veteran UNI team on the road, you have to sit there as a Drake fan and go, what's going to happen Saturday? The best way I explain Belmont to people who don't watch every game of the Valley is this is a team that reminds me of those Hoiberg Cyclone teams where they can just pop a three wherever and whenever they want. They're going to put up 33s. Now, do they always make it? No. That's the biggest concern about Alexander's team, was finding that balance with their offense and defense and not being a live by the three, die by the three type team. But this team is way more consistent and can spread the ball so well and can attack defenses at different levels. Saturday's going to be interesting. I was really hoping we'd be going into this preview today talking about, even if Drake lost, but it was a real close battle, talking about a team, as in Drake, being able to scrap their way into big moments. But it just doesn't appear to be happening. And Saturday is going to be a really tough test at the Knapp Center. We'll be there, though, so make sure to follow along at Media Row Pod on Twitter. We'll be able to talk to Coach Henderson after the game, and we'll post the full interview all over Twitter, so follow us there. So now that we got the negative out of the way, let's take a deep breath and let's get into some positive, because the Drake women's basketball team, if you have not seen Coach Pullman's team, Friday, 6:30, must watch TV. You have some of the best Valley teams going head to head on Friday. You have UNI taking on Murray State, and then Drake taking on Belmont. Drake won 3 of their last 4. Belmont, 4 of their last 5. They're the preseason favorites. They were runners up in the Valley a year ago. This is 2 of the best backcourts going head to head as well. It's going to be a battle of the guards, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Both of these teams are well coached and understand each other. They've played each other where they know what the tendencies are of one another. And they're very similar. Early on in conference play, both of these teams have really handled their opponents. Drake, they've won all their Missouri Valley Conference matchups by 14 plus. Now, again, they're not playing the top dogs, but you look at Belmont, they've won all of their Valley games by 7 plus. You have a typical great defense by Belmont and a typical great offense by Pullman and the Bulldogs. You have Bulldogs number 2 in field goal percentage, while Belmont's number 2 in guarding the field goal. Bulldogs top in assist to turnover ratio in the Valley, while Belmont causes 18 turnovers. And like we said, a battle in the backcourt because you have Abby Alsma, 17 points per game, taking on Jalen Banks, 15 points per game. It is going to be fantastic Friday. Neither team, I don't see either one blowing each other out because Drake, they can move up and down the court with just about anyone. I still go back, even in that blowout loss to Iowa State. Look at that third quarter and just how they were able to really compete with Iowa State early on in that quarter. But then also just look at what they've been able to do in the Valley. Belmont, on the other hand, they're just such a gritty and tough physical defense where they are going to make you work for everything. So turnover is going to be a huge key. This is just going to be a really entertaining game because we're now to the point where you have to start learning where this team truly sits. The Drake women are undefeated in Valley play, but you do look at the opponents. Indiana State, not a great Valley team. We talked about on Wednesday where there's a big drop-off between these teams. At the top for the women and at the bottom. But you have Indiana State, not a great team. UIC, not a great team. SIU, not a great team. And Drake handled them. This is your first opportunity as a Drake Bulldog fan to really learn where the women stack up. Because Belmont's fantastic. Belmont, Murray State this weekend, you're going to learn a lot about Drake in the next 48 hours. Where you're going to see, are they true contenders or was it just the opponents they were playing? I'm leaning more to they're true contenders. 6:30 tip-off, going to be a blast. I can't wait to cover it tonight. This is probably the most excited I've been to go cover a Drake women's game really since last year against Murray State, where again you had that feeling of sitting there like, oh, this is going to be a bloodbath. This is going to be a battle. And Sunday's going to be fun. They're on the road at Murray State. So a lot of excitement around the Drake women. It's just crazy to think of how the start of the year, it was so tough for them to get anything going. And you had fans coming up being like, what is going on? Worst start since Lisa Bluter's first year? And then now everybody sits back and goes, oh, yeah, it's like Pullman's a good coach or something. Oh, and yeah, these are good players that will learn to adjust. And, oh, maybe we were just playing Iowa and Iowa State and Minnesota. Belmont's going to be a tough test. Toughest test, really, for this Drake team since that Minnesota loss. So, see where Drake truly stands. And hopefully, we're talking on Monday about a couple of big wins for the Drake women. So now let's jump in to some football talk.
Let's play this game. Let's play some football.
We have college football playoffs. It kicked off, of course, last night. I think it's so dumb. Can we vent? Can we vent for a second? Why have college football playoff semifinal games on different days and on a Thursday and Friday? What are we doing here? Seriously. Like, football should just see what... I know Joel Klatt, who I love Joel Klatt. I know he was talking about how he's not a huge fan of how the NCAA tournament is set up. Not a fan of that take. I think college football should look at what the NCAA tournament does right and be like, oh, okay, Final Four, Saturday, both games. It wasn't Thursday, New Year's Day, a blast where you could just spend all day watching football? Like, I get why you have one game on New Year's Eve, but you kept most of them on one day. What are we doing? Saturday should be Ole Miss, Miami. And then at night, Indiana and Oregon. That's my little soapbox for a second. But we got to figure out who will be joining Miami in the national championship here tonight as Oregon takes on Indiana. And I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to deal with absolutes. I'm not going to sit here and go, I can't believe, how does anyone have any confidence in Oregon? But here's my thing. Watching Indiana, looking at the stats, looking at the roster, the coaching staff, I can't find a single thing wrong or something that points me to be worried about this Indiana team. Signetti upgraded everything that was a concern from a year ago. He upgraded the quarterback position. He got great wide receivers in with him. The offensive line continued to be physical and huge. And then the biggest worry going into this year was that defense, because we saw what happened in the college football playoffs a year ago where Notre Dame ran all over them, dominated them, and everyone went, oh, Indiana got in because they didn't have a strong schedule. When they had to play Ohio State and had to play Indiana, they got destroyed. Signetti answered that call. This defense is hard-hitting, physical, and that D-line's huge. And will put pressure on anyone. And will find little bits and pieces of your O-line that is a little weak and will expose it. Like they did to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. And I think that's why you saw Miami handle Ohio State's offensive line the way they did. They saw what Indiana did and went, oh, that's how it's done. This team, why I like them so much moving forward, is they can win in different styles. We can see them win an ugly game. They can win physically like they did against Ohio State. And then ask Illinois or Alabama, they can win pretty easily too. So give me Signetti the mastermind. Give me Mendoza the Heisman. Give me a defense that is so physically tough and demanding. And give me the best story in college football to move forward to the national championship. Should be a lot of fun though. I love Dan Lanning. I've been a Lanning supporter all year long, where every time we mentioned him, even when Oregon on paper didn't look good, I said, I trust this team to move forward because of Lanning. And I think they beat Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech had a better defense than Oregon. And yet, Oregon didn't seem to really struggle. And that's on coaching. That's on scheme. That's on getting your team prepared. I think a little bit of it's being there too. Texas Tech had never played in the college football playoffs. Oregon went last year. So I'm a huge Lanning supporter. I think he's a fantastic head coach. The way he can get his team riled up, ready to go, there's going to be no question. Oregon's not going into this scared. Oregon isn't going into this game thinking they're the underdog. He is going to have this team thinking they are the best in college football and that they deserve to be there and that they can beat Indiana. It's also tough for a team to beat an opponent twice in the same year. We can use that cliche on this show. But the way Indiana won that game was because of their physicality. And I think it's going to be very similar to the Big Ten championship. Maybe not as close, maybe not coming down to the wire necessarily like it did in the Big Ten title game, but it's going to be one of those where it is back and forth, heavyweight battle. But still, give me Indiana. I love Cignetti, love the story. Now that Ohio State's out of it, I want to see Indiana win the whole thing. I do. I want to see a college that my whole life I've been like, Indiana has a football team? I remember getting those little helmets as a kid, collected them all the time. I'd put them up on our TV for matchups. And like I would play Indiana. I'm like, oh, does that even get the TV? I remember Iowa playing Indiana, and no matter if Iowa was bad that year or not, you always felt like it was an easy win. And that's how Indiana football's been presented. Basketball school with that, oh yeah, they have a football team. Not anymore. Cignetti in 2 years has flipped it around and could lead them to a national title. Isn't that that's still just crazy to say out loud? That is like saying Iowa State or Iowa, they're playing for a national title. That's how it's like, because in Indiana, all across the country, people know about Indiana, but they weren't talking about them. I know in Iowa, since we don't have pro teams, we talk about Iowa State and Iowa a lot, but you go to Chicago, no one really cares about Iowa State. But if they had a Cignetti run, the whole world would be locked in like they are with Indiana. Going to be a fun one. I think Indiana knocks off Oregon and moves on to play for a national title. All right, to finish up, we haven't done this in a while. I know I kind of moved away from it. I was doing it a lot during the football months. Kind of got busy with basketball, but I haven't done NFL picks in a while. This is a perfect weekend, though, to bring it back. And again, these NFL picks, I think they're fun to do. So we're jumping in to Wild Card Weekend, and we're going to tell you who is going to win this weekend on both the AFC and NFC side of things. And you should listen because, not to brag, 2-year back-to-back champ in my family's NFL pick'ems. Thank you very little. Thank you. Hold your applause. All right, let's get to it. Starting with Houston at Pittsburgh. I know Houston's offense can only put up like 16 points. It's all they really need to do, though. That defense for Houston is scary good. I mean, you have some really good defenses in this year's playoffs. You got, of course, Seattle, Denver, Houston. Patriots have a good one. It'll be interesting. Pittsburgh shouldn't even be here, but give me Houston taking down Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. Next, you have the Bills at Jags. This is a tough one for me. This is a really tough one. The Jaguars have been playing some really good football. The Bills, not necessarily. They made the playoffs, but it's not pretty to watch. And Josh Allen doesn't look as dominant. Doesn't look like, he should be the MVP caliber quarterback like he was last year. The thing that concerns me is that Jaguars offensive line and protecting Lawrence. I'm going to go upset here because I don't think it'll be chalk. So I'm going with the Bills in a huge upset, taking down the Jags. Just because I don't trust that offensive line for Jacksonville. Next up, we got Chargers at New England. Give me New England. I mean, Drake May has been playing incredible, easily could win most improved player. Also, you just look at the Chargers and how inconsistent they've been, where at the start of the year, Chargers look like a Super Bowl team. I mean, when they beat the Chiefs in the style they did at the start of the year, I was sitting back going, I think we're going to see Chargers in Green Bay in the Super Bowl. And now for both of those teams, my view has drastically changed. So I like New England. Balanced team, can beat you in multiple ways at home. I love Vrabel too as a head coach. He was a name a few years ago, 2 years ago, I should say, when the Seahawks had gotten rid of Pete Carroll. He was one that I was okay with. I've always enjoyed Vrabel. Still thought the Titans moved away from him way too fast. So I'm going Houston, Bills, and New England on the AFC. NFC, the team that I think honestly could win the Super Bowl, and it's one of those rare moments where you're sitting there going, it's almost disrespectful they have to play on the road. But the Rams are going to dominate the Panthers. Stafford is the MVP in my eyes. That team is just so good. And the worst part about this is that if the Rams win, they could possibly play the Seahawks. And I don't want to see the Rams again. Someone please beat them. Please, Carolina, beat them. But I don't see it happening. The Rams are so good. And they're balanced. Like, that run game can carve you up. That defense is in your face still. So, this Rams team is legit. Another team that's legit. Another team from the NFC West. Going on the road, but I have all the confidence in Shanahan and Brock Purdy. It's the 49ers. I have little confidence in the Eagles. Ray Roberts came on the show Wednesday, and we previewed the NFL as a whole. I know he said people are kind of overlooking the Eagles when they are the reigning Super Bowl champs. Here's the thing, though. It's one thing to look at this team and go, hey, they were reigning Super Bowl champs, but they're not playing like it. Sure, you have that experience, but there seems to be a lot internal issues with this team. And then you look at the 49ers, one of the best coach teams in the NFL. Shanahan could easily win Coach of the Year for what he's done with a team that has had so many injury issues. But I think Brock Purdy bounces back after kind of a lackluster, disappointing performance in the final game of the year against Seattle. I think they take down an Eagles team that just hasn't performed to that level of expectation that we thought they would be. And then to finish up, a great rivalry game and a wild card is you have Green Bay at Chicago. Green Bay, the last time at Chicago, overtime thriller. I don't see this one going to overtime. The way Chicago plays offensively, they can keep up with anyone. Jordan Love expected to play on Saturday. I don't think it will be enough. I really think the Chicago team is really strong offensively. They've been able to make some big stops, big plays defensively. They turn over quarterbacks quite a bit, and we know what Jordan Love has struggled with in primetime games over the last few years, and that's turning over the ball in big moments. So give me the Bears taking down the Packers to advance. So should be a fun weekend of sports. We have Drake women's basketball tonight, so follow along at 6:30. We have Drake men on Saturday at 5 o'clock. Drake women again on Sunday on the road against Murray State. And then all mixed in between that, we have college football playoffs, NFL playoffs, and much more. So thank you guys again so much for another great week of the Media Row podcast. Thank you again so much for all your support. Thank you to Ray Roberts for hopping on Wednesday and joining us to preview the NFL. And of course, thank you to Kelly's Little Nipper for their support of the show as well. We will see you guys on Monday for a brand new edition of the Media Row podcast.